All right, today we're going to be kicking off the series of videos that go over just briefly the 7 areas of game production that I've identified. And today's video is going to be going over the first area of game production, which is called production, because that's not confusing at all, right? The gaming industry uses the term production in 3 ways. The first way that the gaming industry uses the term production is in the broadest sense. So just the general use of the term game production, which is the process of producing a product, in this case, specifically a video game. So when a company is referred to as a game production company, they are in the business of producing games. But the second way that the gaming industry uses the term production is in the stages of producing a game within the entire process of game production. And that's what we went over in the last video. And if you remember, the phases are ideation, pre-production, production, and post-production. And that leads us to the third way that production is used in the gaming industry. And that's more of in relation to like a department or a role. You can think of a person being a producer. And that's what we're going to be going over in this video. So let's get started. So I've got a note here. This is reminders, and I'll be reading this at the beginning of each of these 7 videos. But number 1 is these are initial descriptions. So this whole thing is going to be like a living document, mind map, whatever it is. It's going to be getting more organized as time goes on, and I'll be making updates to it, as we continue down our journey. The detailed descriptions for each role will be fleshed out in much later detail. So I want to go over these 7 areas just to have something in the back of our minds. I said this in, I believe, the previous video. And I'm really anxious to start learning the different roles and the tools and software that they use. And so I really want to get into that. And the second milestone, if you remember back at the Game Dev Imposter roadmap, the second milestone is to, once we've learned all the basics of all these different areas, then to go back and apply them in terms of actually creating a game. And that's when I really want to go into these in great detail. So this is just something to really keep in the back of our minds for now. Some of the information is highly subjective. Take what I say with a large grain of salt, because there could be some stuff that's either out of date or could be wrong. And lastly, just because a tool is listed does not mean that I recommend it. Most of these tools I've not even used. With that, let's kick into it. So game production, how I'm going to do this is, for each of the different areas, is we're going to have general description, and then the general background of someone that is interested in possibly going into this type of area. We're going to have job titles or roles specific to this area. Some of them, game production has types of roles. I'll explain what that means in just a little bit. And so that's unique to this one. But then I'm going to have last thoughts. And this is typically the format that I'm going to be going over each of these 7 areas of game production. So with that, bear with me, I got to get this organized a little bit. There we go. I had to give some space to each of these because they kind of expand out. So let's start with general description. In the area of game production, they are focused on managing and tracking the game's development. And that's in many different facets. But this is primarily what they do. They're the main intermediary. And when I say they, this is like the production department or producers that are involved in it. They're the main intermediaries between the team and the external personnel. One of their responsibilities is to keep the team happy, motivated, and productive, within budget and also on time. They also keep the team focused on actually creating game assets, completing game tasks instead of tracking schedules, dealing with personal issues, managing external vendors, negotiating contracts, proofreading marketing copies, etc., etc. I'm not going to read every single word of this. So they're focused on dealing with these kind of external issues, if you want to call it that, so that the people that are doing the actual work, the modelers, the coders, the concept artists, all of them can focus on actually implementing the work, actually doing it. Sorry for the random jump there. There was some background noise. But one of their other responsibilities is to remove obstacles, also known as blockers or issues. I've heard them called many names. But basically, they want to help if a dev team member comes across an issue that they need to get resolved, the producer will help them to remove that obstacle or blocker, or try to find some solutions. And I haven't done game production or worked in a game production environment, but I've had issues as a game or a software engineer that some of the software that I was working with had issues, and I've had people that would be in the role of a producer. They were actually called Scrum Masters. Help me kind of navigate, the support desk to get those things resolved. And so that's one of the things that they do. They help to remove obstacles so that the dev team can continue to produce or continue to create game assets. That was long-winded. Let's keep going. They also set milestones for the team, and they need to have the ability to exercise foresight. This is an important note. We'll go into that in just a minute. And they also, with this foresight, they need to inform the team of the next couple of steps. So it's really important for a producer to communicate to the team kind of the next milestones that are coming up, or important meetings that are coming up, things like that. When you're neck deep in the actual development work, you can kind of get lost in terms of like schedule or time, special events or milestones. And so having that reminder every once in a while helps a great deal. Now let's go into the general background. So for these 7 videos, the general background is broken up in the same kind of 4 sections. And that's going to be skills, tools, degrees, certifications, training. And then lastly, my experience, so that y'all know how much experience I have in these specific areas. So in terms of production, let's go into the general background. Skills that are needed if you're someone that is interested in going into game, or working in the department of game production. You need to see, they can tend to have a lot of come from different types of backgrounds, have a variety of backgrounds. But you need really good communication skills and a good just general game industry knowledge, game theory, things like that. Now, I've seen people in this role that have come from maybe a business background. They could come from communication background, much like I've got right there, but even other areas of the gaming industry. And so this could be someone, maybe they were in game engineering, or maybe they were into game art and they wanted to step foot into more of a producer's role. So that's also very common. Organization, leadership, and communication, both written and verbal. All of these are very important because you are kind of leading a team of people. You need people skills, know how to talk to people, time management, and finance skills. If you're a producer that's in charge of keeping track of like budgets or things like that, how money is spent. Basic math calculations, the ability to estimate. This may be wrong here. I've found this pop up a couple times. Maybe I would almost rather reword this as someone who reports the estimate, because a producer themselves, unless they were, like if you had a producer that was in charge of a team of game engineers, coders, software developers, and the producer's not going to know how to estimate the time it takes to do something unless they themselves came from or have a very strong background in software engineering. You need to be proactive and not reactive. This is huge. This is something I've seen oftentimes in several different fields that I've worked in, people that work in these roles. So often they are reactive to things. And, it's like things end up happening that could have been foreseen or suspected may happen. And instead of being proactive about it, they're reactive. And so they're constantly just, reacting to things that are happening instead of being proactive to try and prevent or mitigate, whatever the issue is. Procrastination, laziness, disorganization are the enemy here. You are a why, let's see, what do I have here? These are my personal notes. You are a why not do now what can be done tomorrow person. Okay, yeah. Not a let's do tomorrow what can be done today. Okay, so if you're the personality of someone that likes to get things done and you would rather get it done today, these are very good tendencies for the area of being a producer. If you're someone that likes to procrastinate and put things off, you need to work on them severely, or you may not consider this area to work under. Just saying. All right, tools. Here we go. General experience with tools that track the progress of work, time, and money, or budgets. Some examples of these can be Jira. That's Atlassian, I think I'm saying that right. They're the ones that own Jira as well as some other software. But that's like an issue tracking system or like a ticketing system. Monday, I've not worked with Monday before, but I believe it's probably something similar and has to do a lot with schedules, basically to keep things on track. And then Microsoft Project, that was a huge software or tool that was used, I know, for many, many years in terms of being a game producer. I don't know if that's still relevant today, so that's in question right now. Some of the things you got to be familiar with: Gantt charts, ticketing systems, Scrum and Kanban boards, Excel. We'll touch base on Scrum and Kanban later. Excel, PowerPoint, brainstorming tools like mind maps. That's actually what I'm using right here. This right here is called a mind map for those of you who may or may not be familiar with that. Miro, what I'm using. SWOT analysis, which stands for strengths, weaknesses. I forgot the A. That's terrible. I spelled that wrong. That's why I got it wrong. It's not SWAT. It's SWOT. Oh. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. There we go. See why you guys shouldn't be listening to me? All right. Time estimation, risk management tools, etc. Let's keep going. Degrees. Like I said before, they come from various backgrounds. There have been people that have degrees that have nothing to do with production in any way, shape, or form, but they are working currently in that role. So, you don't have to have a specific degree for this. And I've seen in many cases, you don't even have to have a degree to step into the role of producer. And that's actually the case with a lot of these areas, but I'll save that for the other ones. Communications major may find a good fit here. A psychology major, business major, someone with a technical background. Like I said, you may find someone that's a producer that has an art background as well. The key thing is if you are good or, with a lot of these skills up here, organization, leadership, communication, really doesn't matter so much the background that you have come from, so long as you are strong in the skills that we've got listed up there. Some of the certifications, if you are someone that is interested in the area of game production, you probably should be familiar with some of these. So PMI is a certification holder. I don't know what you call them. PMI stands for Project Management Institute, and they have several certifications in terms of project management. I'll go over these in greater detail in another video, so I'm not going to do that here. But some of the certifications you may be interested in are some of the PMI certifications. That's the CAPM, PMP, PMI, ACP. Scrum Alliance is another one that you may have heard. They have the CSM, which is a very common one. That's the Certified Scrum Master role. Again, I'll go through Scrum in another video, as well as several other certifications. There are, if you are familiar with Scrum, there are large Scrum frameworks, or I don't want to call them Scrum, large Agile frameworks, such as SAFe, and they have several certifications as well. Again, all that I'll go over in detail, much greater detail in another video. Some of the things that may help. This one was interesting. There's something called ToastMaster. I am new to hearing that whenever I was writing this down. So if you want help in terms of public speaking, you can go to, I don't know if it's toastmaster.com. You can Google it, I'm sure. But you can, actually, as a matter of fact, I'll put the link in the description below. But you can go to Toastmaster and become a part of that. And my understanding is that there are like chapters of people or groups of people that come and meet, and you give speeches. It's a way to practice public speaking. And that's definitely a valuable skill if you're someone that's going to be a producer and maybe you freeze up in front of people. It's probably something I should be doing. Leadership trainings. So I didn't know this for many years until, well, let me rephrase that. I didn't know this until the past several years, that there were such things as leadership trainings. I'll try and see if I can find some, but any type of leadership training that's out there, there are organizations that do like how to lead teams, how to do conflict management, how to increase collaboration, things like that. All right, my experience in all of this. So this is one of the few areas of game production, or game production as a whole, that I'll actually have a little bit of experience in. My role is primarily as a software engineer, but I'm beginning to get a foot into the worlds of like project management, which has very much related to game production, the area of game production. And so several of these certifications I actually hold, including like I've got my PMP, that was a big one. Certified Scrum Master is another one. And I've actually just recently finished my Safe Agilist certification. And so I will be coming out with another video going into these in detail. That's going to be like the landscape of project management. I haven't quite figured out what I want to title it yet, but going over a lot of these things. And so if you are interested in becoming a producer, you'll definitely want to check that video out and get some more information there. Other than that, there's so many videos that I need to create. College experience. It took me 9 years to finish a 4-year degree, which is not something that you want to do. It's not how you want to do it. But I was a business economics major at one time. I do have a minor in business economics as a result. And so a lot of these things like SWOT analysis I'm familiar with. And so this will be an area that I will feel a bit at home in, and is one I think is extremely important, especially if you have a large team. Now, if you are a solo or indie developer, there's a producer inside of you. And if you don't, a lot of what I'm saying here in terms of, skills or backgrounds, like if you are a procrastinator, you might need to wake up the inner producer, because we all have a producer inside of us. So this applies to you too if you're an indie developer. All right, let's kick into some of the job titles and roles. A production assistant and associate producer. Now, depending on the company, I've actually seen these applied differently. One company said that the associate level was actually pretty high up. This was a higher level of a producer. Most of the areas that I have found, though, assistant producer and associate producer were like entry-level positions. And so if you were interested in getting into the department of production, this is where you would like to start off. These require 1 to 3 years of experience, and they assist a producer, so someone with more years of experience, and they may be in charge of one aspect of the game. But this is very much, like I said, entry-level position, and so they're kind of getting the ropes of things. Then you kick into the producer. This is 3 to 5 years of experience. So they tend to oversee a single game if it's a smaller studio. If it's a much larger studio, then they're probably going to oversee, specific features of a larger game. They are, as said before, in charge of keeping track of time, budget, and the quality of the assets that are being produced, making sure that they are of high quality, and team enthusiasm. I know some of you may be chuckling or even cursing, depending on your past experience with maybe a producer that you've worked with. I've heard some horror stories, but yes, the producer is supposed to help out with team enthusiasm. The main communicator with project leads. So if you are, let's say you're working on a feature that connects with other features, or that the team is working on a feature that connects with other features or influences other features, there may be some team communication that needs to go on. And so the producer will be speaking to several different leads, project leads, in order to make that happen. Producer facilitates the creative process for the team. Again, you're trying to create an environment that the dev team can do what they do. They communicate the game dev plan to the team. They help to mitigate risks. So producers are the coordinators and business people of the creative world. I saw that description somewhere similar to that, and I actually quite liked it. So they're responsible for getting the game made on time and on budget with the right staffing. So if you think there needs to be an increase in the number of artists you have on your team, producers are the one to help kind of guide that decision. They interact with every area and role of game production to ensure that everyone is working as a team. There is a dev producer or development producer and a publisher producer. So you can have a scenario where you're a team of a medium-sized team, small team, and you pitch a game to a large game studio or a game production company, and they like your idea of a game, so they give you, I don't know if you call it a grant. they give you the budget to create the game. Well, there's going to be a producer on the internal side, on the team side, and then there's also going to be a publisher producer on the game production company side. And there's going to be a lot of communication back and forth, and that's just to make sure internally you've got things running on budget and time, and then externally the game production company is making sure that their investment is going to be taken care of. And so I'll dive more into that in detail when we hit milestone 2 of the Game Dev Imposter roadmap. Then we have senior producer. Senior producer has 4 to 7 years of experience. I would imagine this is going to be like a lead position where they may be in charge of other producers and or a whole group of producers. Executive producer, the EP. This is 5 to 10 years of experience. Similar to what I would imagine is going to be like a program or portfolio manager. Again, that's going to be in the project management video. They are in charge of researching hardware and middleware needs for the teams. Also employee training programs. They evaluate vendors. So you can have, maybe there's an aspect of the game that you want to vendor out. Your team doesn't have to create absolutely every single aspect of a game. You can send it to another company. And so that would be a vendor that would take care of that. So they also need to look at the future project staffing needs. So if you are wrapping up a game, you have another one coming down the pipeline, the executive producer needs to exercise foresight. Like, what do we need to staff this project that's coming? The executive producer reports to the vice president or the CEO of a company. Now, these 7 videos I've done in as it applies to like a large studio. A lot of this can be very easily be applied to small studios. And like I said before, even as an indie developer, you've got to have a producer inside of you in order to keep track of your stuff and get it done. So these can be modified depending on the context of the team or the project or the size of the studio. All right, let's look at types here. So types, I said, was very specific to kind of the department of production. And this is very important here. So you have like a generalist. That's going to be someone that maybe has started out as an assistant, producer and ended up stepping up to become a producer and so on and so forth. But they don't have an specialized area of knowledge in terms of, game production as a whole. So that's where the other 4 come in. And I imagine you can have other ones outside of these 4 as well. But typically you would see like a technical producer is someone that has knowledge of, or even a background in a technical background. So maybe software engineering, networking, whatever. And then you have an art producer. This is someone that's got, a background or knowledge of the art field within game art. So they understand the processes that are involved. Then you have creative producers. These are ones that typically are in charge of like a team of game designers. And then live ops, that was a new term for me. Live ops producer is someone that's in charge of a team that is working on like a live ops scenario. So this is going to be like Fortnite, where it's an online game and it's constantly running. The reason why this is important is because it is a common pain point that I've experienced in the past and that I've read numerous stories of, where if you are a producer, as you are rising up and gaining skills as a producer, and that really starts to become solidified, I would highly encourage you to gain knowledge of the domain of the team that you are leading. So if you have a team of artists, as a producer, you don't have to know how to draw. You don't have to know how to do animations or, concept art, modeling, any of that stuff. But to understand more of their craft and to be able to kind of speak the same language goes a huge way in terms of mitigating miscommunications, in terms of solving problems, because oftentimes I have seen where a producer doesn't understand what is wrong or why something is taking so long. And for the dev team that they're leading to try and communicate that to them can become a huge issue. And even worse, the producer may not know how to mitigate the risk. They may not understand it, or they may try and jump in and try and fix it themselves when they have no idea what they're talking about. And so I've seen those cases. So if you are a producer, I would encourage you, as you solidify your career as a producer begin to pick up the domain of the team that you're going to be, working with. All right, so last thoughts. I do have a list of YouTube channels that I'm going to recommend, and I will put them in the description below. Although this is a YouTube channel, I am not going to try and take what other people have done in a much better fashion and regurgitate it as if it were my own ideas. So in my research of all this, I did find these 5 videos that I found to be very helpful in terms of learning about, the life of a producer. And so I would encourage you, definitely check these out. Again, they'll be in the descriptions below. The first one, the Game Developers Conference channel, they had a video that was published back in 2017, which was really good. That's a longer one. It's about an hour long, but definitely check it out if you're interested in becoming a game producer. The other 4 are much shorter, but check those out. A lot of these people are producers themselves or have been, and so they give a lot of good information there. So definitely check that out. But yeah, that's it. This is game production, the area of game production as a whole. And so if you are a game producer, if you have any experience as a game producer, please post it in the comments below. If I have missed anything, I've tried to cover some of the pain points, the most common pain points, but if there are big ones that I've missed, put it in the comments below. If there's a really big one, then I'll pin it. But like I said, I want this to be a channel where people can come in and people that are in other roles would read your comments and learn about that pain point in terms of being a producer, the pain points that you face with the development team. And for those of you that are not, producers, if you have worked with a producer, post in the comments below some of the pain points and some of the good things, experiences that you've had. So if there were things that I missed in here that were pain points, list them. If you've had great experiences, what was it that the producer that you worked under or with, what was it that they did that was amazing? What are some of the skills that either I've listed or have not listed that they had that helped to create this amazing environment for you? Because a producer really, really has a lot of influence on your experience as someone who works in the gaming industry. I've heard terrible stories of producers that were just awful in the nightmare experience that they created for months and possibly even years for the team. But then I've also read amazing stories of people that were like, I worked on the best team, and it's like that dream project that, as a developer you want to work on, and you look back later on in life and you go, that was an incredible time. And almost every time I hear a developer talk about that, a producer is somehow involved and tied to that made it such a great experience. So with that, I'm going to quit talking. I'll see you guys in the next video.